So Chaplin, what'd you think of the show? I hope that's a good sign.
I don't know where this will all lead. The one thing I do know is this is just the beginning.
Netflix would like to remind you it adapted One Piece and nothing else with Avatar: The Last Airbender. So okay, before I give my thoughts on this show, it is, dare I say, crucial that I let you know what I think of the original Avatar: The Last Airbender animated series, because I think it's going to play a big part. Obviously, it does for me, but I think for a lot of people, what you think of this show, depending on what you think of the original show, it's probably my favorite series of all time. I go back and forth between that and Daria. You can tell I have a real affection for animated shows about young people discovering life truths in very strange ways, and usually comedic ways, but can also be very deep ways. So I absolutely fell in love with it. I did a vlog series where I actually documented my journey with it, and that's what it felt like. It felt like a journey. You really feel like you just were transported to this entirely different world that had elements of our world in there, definitely certain philosophies and landmarks, certainly satires of our world at times. Just kind of had everything. It had good comedy, it had wonderful teachings of wonderful lessons, not just lessons for kids, but lessons for adults and philosophy and psychology, all sorts of great stuff like that. It just had everything. It was really a great show. So now we have this Netflix series that is doing something that I'll just admit I'm not on board for. I don't get the point in adapting this to live action. They tried it with the movie. You can yell at Shyamalan all you want, but it was a DOA idea. How can you squeeze an entire season of that show into whatever that was, 2 hours? And now you have this live action series that extends the length of the episodes, but still not gonna have the same amount of time. Live action in general is gonna take more time to get across information, so they have to make some changes, which I want. I want them to make changes to this. But I was still going in with an open mind. I know a lot of people worked very hard on this, and you can tell the love and dedication is there. They really have respect for the source material, and they're trying to capture it as best as possible while also changing up some things and trying to move stuff around so it isn't just a shot-for-shot remake, and I appreciate all of that. But the best way I can describe this, and this is gonna sound like it's the kiss of death, but I don't mean it to be that way, but the best way I can describe it, it's a less offensive Disney live-action remake. They do a lot of the same things where they'll move stuff around, but nothing's really improved because of it.
The world needs the Avatar.
The world had the Avatar, and it was perfect! They'll take a lot of time explaining rather than showing, and it doesn't need to. There's a lot of moments where characters will sit down and talk about who they are, what they want to do, why they want to do it, their connection to these other people, and they don't need that. They just need to act on it, and the original show was so good at that. Like the way this show opens up, we actually get Aang's backstory, and if you are a crazy diehard fan of the show, you know this is blasphemous, because that led to what many say is the best episode in the series, where it shows both Zuko and Aang's backstories back to back. Even if you did not see the series, even if you're like, I have no idea what this is gonna be my introduction to it, I feel like you would look at that intro and then later see Aang with the ice bubble breaking free, glowing while these two kids discover him, and you be saying to yourself, man, this would be more exciting if I didn't know who that kid was, if I didn't know his name, or where it came from, or what he could do. And that's something the show does a lot of. It sucks out a lot of the mystery of the show because it does move around so many things.
I've chased down every hint of the Avatar. It's my destiny.
And you will face it with slightly less impressive makeup than what we did. There's a scene where a character is breaking out another character. Again, without going into spoilers, if you've seen the show, you probably remember that they hint strongly at who it is, but they don't quite give it away. It's still gonna be a little bit of a surprise, of a reveal. In this, there's no mistaking who it is, but they still act like it's a big reveal. But I mean, there's literally law of deduction. There's nobody else it could be. And there's so many moments like that. Even after that scene, the two characters in the original show have a few words to each other. It's only a few words, and that's all you need. They just got stuff across so tightly and so concisely, and they did not waste time And in this one, they have this long conversation explaining things we already know, and it just feels like a waste. There's so many moments where it just feels like they're explaining all this stuff to you that just does not need words at all. And it's so strange because for a show that they're saying they want to grow up, they want to make it more adult and gritty, kind of like Game of Thrones, like not quite as gory or intense, but I mean like definitely the show that people meet up at the water cooler and say, man, did you see that last night? They do so many childish things that do not grow it up. If anything, it spells things out more. And that's not what was fun about the show. What was so fun about the show was the discovery. You were discovering this world and these characters and their backstories, and they just lay it all out there for you. And when they do, it in a weird way doesn't build up the world as much. I had to keep reminding myself there's a combination of animals in this world. You know, they'd say, oh yeah, look at the turtle duck over there. I'd be like, oh, that's right, that's a thing in this world. Where in the animated one, because you can animate and you can have whatever you want everywhere, you see these animals all over the place. And the world just looks so different from anything you've ever seen. It's so bright and vibrant, you can get lost in it. Where this one, it looks nice. I'm not gonna say it looks bad, but it doesn't look like a world you can really feel like you've been transported just somewhere completely different. Even though in the original they do borrow from certainly many things, and like I said, they even satirize many things, that helped give it more of an idea of what the world was about, where in here it just feels like kind of 5 or 10 any other generic fantasies you've seen before.
The Fire Nation is embarked on a dark path.
By hiring this actress to say the opening dialogue of the show. Not really wait to get to her part, she's pretty bad. At this show's best, it's fine. At its worst, it's boring. I never got much passion out of these characters, because again, so much of it is them just sitting down and explaining everything. But that's not to say the actors are necessarily bad. It's hard to say this is a bad show. It's just not a good show. I feel like if somebody sat down having never seen the show before, they would find it okay-ish. I think they would be a little bored at times, but if nothing else was on, maybe they would finish it. If you are a fan of the show, you might get through it okay. You might just like seeing some live-action versions of the stuff maybe you grew up with or just saw in animated form and want to see their take on it. And again, they're not awful takes. It's just they're starting at a huge disadvantage of having it be live action, having to make it more realistic. And one of the big problems with that is that they tone down the humor a lot. Now, that's not to say there's no humor in this. It's not like the Shyamalan one, you know, where there's absolutely no jokes. They have some jokes, but half of them are okay. The other half are kind of like Lord of the Rings jokes. Like, you know, where there's a scene where two characters are talking and then they all just kind of laugh and you go, oh, well, that's a funny scene because they're laughing. I'm not laughing, but I'm glad they're laughing.
And the dwarfs just spring out of holes in the ground.
There's a lot of those.
What more do you need?
And in Lord of the Rings, it doesn't have to be a comedy. It relies on a whole bunch of other things. Comedy is a very minor part of its identity. Comedy is a huge part of Avatar's identity. And it needs to be really damn funny because we are following kids on this adventure, and kids are naturally very funny and very energetic. And there really doesn't seem to be a ton of passion to these kids. The acting goes back and forth from okay, particularly Aang, when he needs to be joyful, he can be very joyful, and Sokka, when he needs to be kind of a schmuck or a know-it-all, doesn't know what he's talking about, that can be a little funny too. But a lot of them have this strange cadence, and they talk in a very strange way whenever the moment goes dramatic. These people, whenever they talk, they have this cadence where they have these pauses and they always have to talk like this, and they take breaths at strange moments as they talk. They're all like that whenever they talk dramatically, and it's really bizarre.
Right. There goes the savior of the world.
Yes, this is a world where they have to tone down the humor so they can't have like the boulder or a lot of like references to stuff that we have, but they can say things like cool and turncoat. They have turncoats in this world? So obviously, like the Disney live-action remakes, you're gonna be thinking back to the original and how much better they did it. Nothing meets or surpasses the original, except for one thing. Iroh is really, really great in this. And if you know that character from the original, you know what an amazing character that is and what an amazing performance it is. So I'm really not messing around when I say this actor is about on the same level as Mako. Phenomenal actor Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. Anytime he shows up in something, he's really fantastic. And while not mimicking the same performance, he does give his own spin on it. He really captures the sweetness and the dignity and the look of the character. Zuko is also good, but again, his performance, like a lot of people's performances, kind of goes back and forth between really caring about what he's talking about and then kind of looking lost in what he's talking about, which I guess you could say is part of the character, but nah, there's moments where he's supposed to be really angry about something, really sad about something, and it's just not that convincing. Katara's kind of the same way. A lot of the actors half the time just have kind of this middle ground that's not very interesting, and again, that's not what Avatar is. It's supposed to leap off the screen at you.
I'm not supposed to save the world.
But imagine what'll happen if you don't even try.
Whoa, don't raise your voice like that. I'm really a big fan of Ken Leung. I've really enjoyed his work. Whenever I see him in something, I kind of perk up. Some of the things they move around I'm okay with, like they show both the Fire Lord and Azula much earlier. And I didn't mind that. I thought that was building up very well what was in store for future seasons, if there is going to be a future season. If not, it was good that they got him out here. I didn't hate this. I didn't really get into it either, though. Nothing justified it existing. Nothing justified bringing this into live action. There was nothing where I said, oh man, that looks really good to see in live action, because half of it's not live action. Half of it's already animated. It's CG and CG cities and everything, which, you know, okay, you gotta do what you gotta do, but when you already have something that just looks phenomenal and you don't have to convince someone, well, that's really there and that's not. No, it's all animated. As soon as we get past the fact that this is drawn, everything exists. Everything is there. Where with live action and special effects and CG, you really have to try hard to tell someone, no, there's really a city there. No, we're flying right now. This giant bison, you're really on top of it and everything, and it just feels less impressive now, because it doesn't feel like it's really there, where in animation you have to try harder to create something that's really gonna stay with you. And I think the gimmick of doing something in live action but combining it with CG is just getting less and less impressive. You can tell there was a lot of love and dedication that went into this, and you feel that in every frame, but I think there was a lot of love and dedication that went into the Cowboy Bebop live action series too, and they just didn't know how to translate that, so it's not that bad. Somewhere in between the genius of One Piece and the misguidedness of Cowboy Bebop is this show. And I think some people will find that okay. I don't know if they'll like look forward to the next episode, but they might just, you know, leave it on if they're doing something else. But I think die-hard fans are definitely gonna have some problems one way or another. So I'm gonna give it 2 out of 4 penis hairs. I definitely felt the love and effort, but I can see why the original creators walked away at some point. With that said, what'd you think of it? Am I completely wrong and this is a fantastic representation of what Avatar was? Have you never seen the show and this just really got you into it and you want to see more and maybe you want to check out the animated series? Or do you feel like this is even worse than The Last Airbender? Okay, let's not. Nobody's gonna think that. But are you disappointed by this? Did it not come through on what you really enjoy about the characters and look forward to when you were watching them in the animated version? Or are you somewhere in between where it's kind of neat to see it in live action, but it's nothing that great and nothing's gonna beat the classic? Let me know your thoughts and I'll see you next time. Take care.